Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor are poised to take the NFL by storm for the Indianapolis Colts in 2024. So, how will the Colts use this dangerous duo? And what's the latest from Colts OTAs? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my fellow analyst and co-host at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, this was one of the main things we talked about when the Colts drafted Anthony Richardson last year, just how dangerous this duo would be with him and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. Unfortunately, in 2023, they were only on the field together for 2 snaps. 2024, though, with a healthy Anthony Richardson, a healthy Jonathan Taylor, and all the contract stuff regarding Jonathan Taylor in the past, man, this could be a really lethal combination for the Colts in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and it's really what you're building your entire offense off of. I mean, look, man, I know that it's a quarterback-driven league, and it's a passing league. Man, there are still and always will be offenses that really predicate their entire success off of the ground attack. Okay, that's what the Colts are going to do, and they have so much skill, and it starts and ends with these two. And when you put them together, you have just so much potential, which is why it's just sad they only got 2 snaps last season, but we've been able to see them, check them out a little bit in off season. And, I cannot wait to dive into this a little bit because, Andrew, if this duo can hit, it's just going to amplify the rest of what, the other offensive weapons can do in Steichen's offense.
Exactly. So, and really the Colts can do a lot of different things. And I wanted to talk about this topic because it came up on X this week, just how potent would this duo be with Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I think Colts Film Room kind of started the discussion. And guys, if you don't follow him on X, please go do so. Fantastic guy. Love his work. Make sure to go follow him. But we're going to talk about that tonight. How are Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, how can they be used not only in the run game to help this Colts offense, but how does it affect the passing game as well? How does it affect other teammates, the receivers, the tight ends, and basically then we're going to give our prediction or our expectations for this duo. Plus we'll get you caught up on everything from OTAs this week there at West 56th Street. So we've already got people in the chat. We've got Tez ready to get going tonight. Thanks for joining us. DSG Goodbar, a loyal listener. We've got Culture Shock from the Blue Stable here, one of our really good friends. Guys, if you haven't done so, I always tell you to subscribe to us, but after you subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle, go to Culture Shock, subscribe, turn those notifications on for him, and go give him a follow on X as well. One of the good guys. So appreciate you joining us here tonight. Sean Contright in the chat as well, ready to talk about this duo. Well, we are too. So as everyone continues to roll in, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. So Drake, let's talk about it. Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. How will the Colts use these guys in 2024 in the various aspects of the game? And obviously, I think the area that we can start out talking about is in the run game, because of just how things will open up. Having Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson side by side there, I'm going to pass it off to you, man. How do you see these guys really affecting the Colts running game, not only with which the running game with Jonathan Taylor and all of that, but the quarterback run game as well?
It's just, man, I see it being just such a massive impact to have 2 guys that can be just a missed tackle away or a lane away from taking it to the house. And so I think that it's going to help the blocking. I think that because, you got to think about run blocking as opposed to pass blocking. Pass blocking, you sit back and you accept the contact. Whereas in run blocking, you're trying to initiate it and trying to win by pushing. So it's like you have 2 guys that can just do so much like that. It makes life easier on your run blocking schemes. Okay. It also is just going to open up so much in your passing attack, especially through play action and especially on the edges. Okay. Like, especially in the vertical game. So you're going to potentially see more explosive plays because if you walk into a football game against Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor and you're not prepared for them, which that's never going to happen. But hypothetically, let's say you're like, we got to stop the tight ends, Michael Pittman, we got to stop AR from getting outside the pocket, blah, blah, blah. If you don't account for the plays these two can put together that are schemed up for them, you're going to lose the game, or you're going to, at least your defense is going to get its ass kicked. So I think that it just really makes this offense as dangerous as you can imagine, Andrew. I think that it makes life easier on many offensive players, especially in my humble opinion, that offensive line. But it also just gives Shane Steichen more plays to call so that he makes defenses that are playing the Colts look like the Houston Texans did in week 2.
Yeah, and when we look at the run game specifically, this I keep going back to when you watch Shane Steichen as the Eagles offensive coordinator in 2022. You know, when Jalen Hurts was running crazy and was a MVP candidate, when you had Miles Sanders out there getting double digit touchdowns, and you know, Boston Scott was a part of that too. You know, just they had a plethora of running backs, but the running game for the Philadelphia Eagles at that time was so diverse. It was, you know, it was very dynamic. They were able to do a lot of different things, and you also have to credit that Eagles offensive line. But they were doing the dirty work in there and really creating those holes. But when you have a duo like Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in there, you know, it just opens up so many more things that you can do. Because you know, the defense has to account for both of them on every single play. And I know there's an argument that it doesn't matter what running back is in there with Anthony Richardson, that because you're going to have to account for both of them on every single play. And I get that to an extent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, let's look at, say, Anthony Richardson and Zach Moss together versus Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. You know, we saw last year what having Anthony Richardson in there and on those options, on those RPOs, on those fake handoffs, on the actual handoffs, that it froze those linebackers again for just a half second to see who has the ball. You know, does Anthony Richardson still have the ball, or did he hand it off to Zach Moss? And that allowed Zach Moss to get some extra yards, you know, get a step ahead of those linebackers in the second level, so that way he could pick up some decent gains. And so when you take that, you know, if that's what's going to happen with a solid, I wouldn't say, you know, he's not, let's be honest here. Zach Moss isn't a spectacular running back. Really good running back, a solid starting running back, but he's not an elite running back. He's not a Jonathan Taylor. So when you put Jonathan Taylor in that situation, Drake, you know, those 7 to 10 yard runs with Zach Moss, because of Anthony Richardson being back there, they turn into 15 to 17 yard runs with Jonathan Taylor, because he has that extra pop to his game. The ability to read how the blocks are being set up, the ability to hit the hole with the burst, have that home run speed. So I think that's why this duo is going to be so dynamic in the run game, is because, you know, it's not necessarily anything different that the Colts would be doing with Jonathan Taylor than, say, if Trey Sermon or Evan Hall is the one handing off the ball. It's that Jonathan Taylor is amongst the elite when it comes to running backs. So he's going to turn those good plays that a solid running back would get. He's going to turn those into great plays just because of how talented Jonathan Taylor is. And we saw towards the end of last year, when he is healthy, you know, Jonathan Taylor is still easily a top 5 running back in the NFL. I mean, almost 200 yards against the Houston Texans in week 18. You know, that's now you add Anthony Richardson with that, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and look, credit to Zach Moss, man. You know, I know that he had a couple games that were just absolute ballsy performances, like that 30 carry game against the Ravens. That's just something I'll never forget. But his longest career run, everybody, was as a member of the Indianapolis Colts, and it was on a play when Anthony Richardson was the quarterback against the Titans, and it was because the linebacker froze just enough watching Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not saying Moss can't get it done. Moss is not a speedster. It just shows that, yes, Moss can get it done. It shows just having Richardson on the freaking field. The guy could probably have a bum leg. No one knows it. And every defensive player is going to have to watch him every time that man's fingertips touch the pigskin. So I just think that Zach Moss also had a great offensive line, an offensive line that was angry and was resurgent. And I do think that he needs a committee to be a season-long effective starter and get over 1,000 rushing yards for Cincinnati. I think you'll see Chase Brown, who's in that backfield, get plenty of work. So Jonathan Taylor is far past Zach Moss, and it's not to say Zach Moss isn't a good enough running back, but like you said, man, Taylor is up there with Christian McCaffrey. He's up there in the discussion with your Nick Chubbs, with your bell cow top backs in the entire league, and he will be until further notice. So the offense also pretty much still runs through him. I know Richardson is now the guy, but man, if he's out there on the field with Richardson, that offense is going to be a big part Jonathan Taylor. So I just think that he's so much better. He's got that game-breaking ability, and he really makes life easier because he can make up for mistakes. If you miss a block, that's the kind of guy that can outrun somebody, get a one-cut hit to the end zone, or break a tackle. He's the guy that just makes things happen, man.
Exactly. Wyatt Law brings up a good point. Few teams have all 5 offensive line starters returning intact. The big uglies are going to eat. The offensive line is definitely going to be a huge part of this equation as well. DSG Goodbar, appreciate what Moss did, but JT is on another level. Absolutely. And then Colts House coming in. Wait a minute, kids, take off your hats. It's Drake Wally. Colts House is always a big fan of Drake here. Good to see you as well. Exactly. So, but let's talk about the passing game here, Drake. And I think this is where we could see, more. I think this is where we could see a bigger impact this year too, because on those play actions, if Jonathan Taylor is really getting going, that's going to freeze the defense even more, to open things up for Anthony Richardson or those RPOs, or those run pass option plays where it freezes the defense just a little, or they step down because they think the ball is going to go to Jonathan Taylor. It could open things over the middle. What I'm thinking is the quick RPO and you take it away, and you're going to see possibly Michael Pittman on a slant, or are you able to get out to Adonai Mitchell on a quick in-breaking route to let him as he creates that separation, So what do you see? What do you think that this just Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson duo, how's it going to affect the passing game and what the Colts do in that area?
I just think that, again, it just opens up so much more. And I really think it benefits the deep threats. Guys like Alec Pierce, guys like even A.D. Mitchell, those are the guys that are going to benefit from the running game being effective. Because as a linebacker, cornerback, safety, whatever, any position in the NFL, you have such little time to digest so much. And the less you have to think about in that tiny little time frame, especially as a defensive player, the better. The more you have to think about, that's when you screw up. Okay. When you have guys like Taylor and Anthony Richardson out there, to give you an idea, everybody, before the play even starts, you're already thinking, I have to watch these two. Nothing's even happened. No audibles, no signs, no signals, nothing. You're already thinking, I can't let one of these guys get away. So just already it's boosted. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, guys like Ashton Doolin, who is a vertical threat, even though he's more of a special teamer. Just those streakers, those guys who get down the field, and even the tight ends who really, dominate the seam in the middle of the field. That's who it's going to really amplify the play of. And it's going to make life just so much easier on a guy like Alec Pierce. In fact, one more thing. That's the guy I think of the most when I think of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor teeing off and just really working well in unison. As far as receivers on the Colts, no one sticks out more to me than Alec Pierce. I think if that all works out, that's when you get your 45, 50 catches for 850 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's when you would see Pierce break out, because he's just not that versatile. I'm sorry. He needs a ground game and he needs play action.
Definitely interesting to think about, especially with the added deep threat that Alec Pierce does bring to
Yeah.
this offense. But I think just having these two in the backfield and on those specific plays, those play action, those RPOs, I think it helps Anthony Richardson just because again it helps freeze that defense. They're not just staying attacked or attached to those wide receivers. You kind of have to be coherent and know what's happening in the run game as well. Or for those linebackers, in those play actions, if they come down in the box, you imagine Jelani Woods with that 4.6 speed, who's been making more and more plays in OTAs, still making good plays. We already talked about it on Tuesday. He had a really good week of a practice this week as well. We'll talk about it in a bit, but that allows Jelani Woods to get through and get to the second level. And we saw last season how Anthony Richardson really loved to attack the middle of the field with the tight ends, in that second level over top of those linebackers. Josh Downs had a couple of those. So when that defense comes down a little bit, and again, it allows those shots to the second level. Or if the safeties come down, looking at a Jonathan Taylor, that's when you get into the deep threat that you were talking about, Drake, for allowing it to go deep to whether it's Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, even Michael Pittman. So I think it helps. It helps everything in return in terms of the Anthony Richardson, the wide receivers, and the tight ends. Just makes the defense have to pause, which can get them behind these athletic wide receivers and these athletic skill position players that the Colts have. But here's another question that I want to talk about: is should Jonathan Taylor be more involved in the passing game himself? We kind of saw it a little bit there in 2021 with Carson Wentz, how he was used a little bit more as a wide receiver, but for the most part in Jonathan Taylor's tenure as with the Indianapolis Colts, he hasn't really been used too much as a pass catching option. So this could be an area where Shane Steichen starts to add different wrinkles to this offense. Last year, again, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor, whoever was out there really weren't used too much in the passing game. Jonathan Taylor has shown that he can catch the football. Does Jonathan Taylor now on that new 3-year, $42 million extension, making big time running back money? You're expecting this guy to be out there for the bulk of the plays. I think he should be more involved in the passing game, especially if you can get Jonathan Taylor out in space. That's when he's deadly. Get him the ball out in space in the passing game, and he can use that 4.3 speed, that track speed, that home run hitting ability to really get out and make some plays. So I'm going to be really interested to see as we kind of watch through training camp. We're not going to see much in the preseason, but training camp in the early parts of the regular season, if Shane Steichen kind of has some tricks up his sleeve to get Jonathan Taylor more involved in the passing game, because that's an area that I think the Colts could not only improve on, but really try to exploit with what Jonathan Taylor brings to the equation.
Yeah, and JT's best season as far as receiving was in 21 with Wentz. He had 40 catches, he had 360 yards receiving and 2 receiving touchdowns, and just one of those came in that absolute masterclass 5 touchdown performance against the Buffalo Bills. I'll never forget. Wentz looked downfield, the whole defense was running down there, and he just throws it to Taylor. Done. Yep. It's over. So yes, I agree, but I also think that you do have one of my favorite picks they've had in the last couple of years was Evan Hall, and I here's why. I think that you are getting 2023's best receiving back, period, out of the whole draft class. You're talking about he led FBS from a running back perspective in receptions in 2022. You're talking about a guy who can freaking block really well for a guy his size. You don't think about that. You think receiving back, oh, they can't block. Evan Hall's a monster blocker. Okay. He can protect your quarterback. And I do think that he is going to be the primary receiving back, but I also think that the Colts have really, really needed Taylor to be more of that guy. But I also think they've missed Nyheim Hines' receiving ability. And I think they want that with Evan Hall.
I would
So
agree. I would
yeah,
agree there. They need that receiving threat in the backfield. And look who decided to show up. It's Stats Matt. Stats Matt didn't even know we were live on Tuesday, so that was allegedly his excuse. So that's why he didn't show up. But hey, at least he showed up. Better late than never, I guess. But good to see you, buddy. And then to kind of piggyback off what you just said, Drake. Colts House saying Evan Hall time, baby, and then Wyatt Law again need to resist the temptation to work JT too much. Sermon and Hall better step up to share more of the load. So
yes,
yeah, I mean, because obviously you don't while Jonathan Taylor is while Jonathan Taylor is your $42 million running back and you want to use him as much as possible, you also want Jonathan Taylor to be fresh and healthy into December and January when you're making that playoff push. So it's a very good point as well. So when we look here, we talked about the running game with how Richardson and Taylor can obviously have an impact there. We talked about in the passing game. Now, what are the expectations for this duo heading into 2024? Drake, I'm not asking for you to give exact stat predictions, but just kind of tell me, do you think that the offense is going to run through these guys? Whether it is the run game, the passing game, what have you. What do you expect to see out of this Colts offense, specifically when it comes to Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor together?
I see, like you said, the entire offense, it has to run through them. You have to think about something here. I know this is weird to mention, but at the snap of the ball, quarterback, whether it's a fake, an option, a handoff, then running back. Okay, those are the two guys that are probably going to be seeing or touching that ball the quickest, the first after the snap. That's where the defense's eyes are. All right, when you have two guys at those positions in an offense that has the RPO, like Shane Steichens and other guys run it. Shanahan runs it. A lot of coaches run it. But when you run it specifically with RPO sets, I mean, my God, it can open up so much because by the time it's hit Richardson's hands and he's faked to Taylor, you've already had to account for two different guys. For all you know, Pierce has one step on you and it's over. So I think that the whole offense is going to run through these guys. I even think that when Taylor takes a breather, Evan Hall, he's not just a receiving back. The dude is like 200 pounds, and he's almost 6 feet tall. He is a downhill runner. So you're going to see him in those sets. You're going to see Sermon in those sets. If they sign somebody else or make a deal to get somebody else, you're going to see the running backs used with Richardson's skill sets, not the other way around. Okay, and that includes Taylor. So I just think that you have to start and end with these guys, Andrew. I think that your future was built upon it. What's the first thing we said when Richardson was drafted, when we even thought he might become a Colt? Can you imagine him with Jonathan Taylor? That's all we need. Okay. That's the whole premise of this offense. So I think it's everything. That's really the answer at the end of the day. These two to this offense, it's everything to the success.
Yeah, I do agree that I think that obviously the Colts offense is going to run through Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I think that's a given. But the expectations that I have for this is I expect it to be this combination to be a lethal combination or a lethal duo as we put in the title. It's just going to make this Colts offense so much more dynamic. And one of the things that I've always loved about Shane Steichen is he's like a chameleon when it comes to his offensive system. He doesn't consistently run the same plays. He's not going to attack you the same way every single game. One of the things that he said way back in his introductory press conference is, we are going to dictate, we are going to play and have a game plan specific to each opponent, because every team in the NFL is different. Their strengths, weaknesses, the personnel groupings. You have to be able to change and mold the offense and mold the game plan to that, because otherwise, if you just run the same thing every time and we're going to stick to our identity, do this no matter what. I mean, that's how coaches get fired, because they aren't willing to change. When you have Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, it just, again, goes back to that what you've been saying all episode, Drake. It just opens up so many options for this offense. There might be games where Anthony Richardson only throws it 15, 18 times a game because Jonathan Taylor is absolutely mollywopping the other team, and Taylor runs for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. There may be other games where Anthony Richardson gets hot in the passing game and he ends up throwing it, 28 to 32, 33 times, and he ends up with 3 touchdowns, and close to 300 yards passing. There may be times where it's Anthony Richardson in the running game, and he's the one that's taking over because all the focus is on Jonathan Taylor. So, and really, that can all be determined by how the opposing defense is playing these guys. So, if the opposing defense is zeroing in on Jonathan Taylor, you can have Anthony Richardson do some things and kind of make your offense go that way. If the defense is focusing in and trying to stop Anthony Richardson, you have the 2021 NFL rushing champion in the backfield. You can give it to Jonathan Taylor and have the offense go through him. It just makes this offense so dynamic, and it allows this Colts team to really attack any defense they go up against in a multitude of ways. And that's what makes this so scary. And that's why this duo of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor is going to keep opposing defensive coordinators up at night.
Yeah, and you think about the duo here. It's really difficult to find a more devastating duo than those two as far as quarterback and RB1, outside of a guy or a pair like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, which, holy crap, that's actually really terrifying when you say it. Forgot that happened almost. But look, man, this is what the offensive identity is. It's what the offensive line, who, by the way, stupid expensive for the Colts. It's what each one of their best offensive linemen do best. They block in the ground game, okay? And when you can break the will of a defensive front early and often, that's when all hell breaks loose for them, because then they can't stop anything. So you're talking about two of the most dynamic runners in the league that play on the same team at the two most important positions for their scheme. I think that it's a home run hit. If these two can make it work, man, you're looking at a very, very devastating duo to deal with. And every single week, regardless of defensive rank, you're going to have to account for both of them. And then you've got the rest of the weapons to deal with.
It's going to be so damn fun to watch. I can't wait. So, Drake, let's move on to our next topic here. We discussed that the Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor duo ad nauseum. It's going to be so fun to watch in 2024. But let's talk about what the Colts are doing on the field currently. Let's talk about the latest from OTAs. So on Tuesday, we recapped everything that had been happening in OTAs thus far. Today was the final practice of the week for the Colts in OTAs, and the final OTA session, the final voluntary session for the Colts. Next week, the Colts will have a mandatory mini camp where everyone is required to be there before they break, because next week is it, guys. Next week is the last time this Colts team will be together there until they report in Westfield at the end of July for training camp. So they wrapped up the voluntary portion of OTAs today, and Drake will put it simple here. This past week, everything that I've heard, and then what was shown today, the open portion to the media, the defense has been winning the days, and that's again, I think we talk about this every year. That's not surprising. At this point, the defense should be ahead of the offense. The defense is always ahead of the offense early in the year, so it's nothing to panic about as far as when you're thinking about what's happening with the offense. In fact, if you're a Colts fan, you should probably be excited about that, because the theme throughout these practices this week, great coverage by the Indianapolis Colts secondary, by the linebackers. And again, that's an area that we thought, this is could be one of the downfalls of this Colts defense, with a lot of unproven cornerbacks and safeties, but they've really been displaying some great coverage ability throughout OTAs. And if you're a Colts fan, that was worried about that, that's a promising sign to see that these young guys are starting to take a step forward.
Yeah, and you're talking about in your division, you currently have many who consider the top guy to win the 2024 MVP in CJ Stroud. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You have a guy in Trevor Lawrence who, regardless of if he has or hasn't, based off of your opinion, lived up to expectations, he's kicked the crap out of the Colts for the most part. And then you're talking about a guy like Will Levis who has an arm to attack defenses vertically. Okay. So you need to cover. All right. So it's good to hear this. It's exciting to hear this. It's also really encouraging to hear names like Daniel Scott made a play. Jalen Carley's made a play. Daniel Scott's basically, at this point, he's old as hell when it comes to like being a sophomore in the NFL. This is his entry season, man. So people forgot about him. He can play. And then you hear, about Jalen Jones continuing to do well in year 2. Juju Brents, you hope that he can make that jump. It's just exciting to hear. Okay. And also, don't forget that the Colts did make Jalen Simpson a cornerback, and I'm completely spacing on the name. Who's the Marshall cornerback they picked?
Micah Abraham.
Yeah, so that's a name that I know me and Andrew were actually both in unison when they picked him. We were like, what the hell are they thinking? But there might be something there. He's incredibly fast. He's incredibly just sudden. He makes things happen all of a sudden, and he can play the ball, which is huge. So I think that the Colts have got some diamonds in the rough here, man, and I think that if you're a Colts fan, it's as good as you could have possibly expected. The worst case scenario is defensive secondary lets up 2 to 3 touchdowns to first and second team. You don't want to hear that kind of stuff because the defense also, like you said, they know what the offensive sets are. So
yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, Chris Ballard last year bet on the offensive line, saying, I think these guys are going to take another step. Talking about Bernard Ryman, Will Fries, and they did. And the Colts offensive line got back to top 5 status in the NFL. Well, the Colts are betting again on a young position group to take a step in 2024 in their quarterback room and in their safety room. They're betting that Juju Brents being able to stay healthy and get those live reps can turn into the starting caliber cornerback that they believed he would be when they drafted him in the second round. They like what they've seen from Jalen Jones and from Dallas Flowers. And then at the safety room, so far they've liked what they've seen from out of Nick Cross and Daniel Scott. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. I still think that the Colts will be checking the market to see, especially at the safety position, Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, keeping tabs on those guys. But so far in Colts OTAs, so good for that secondary. So, but let's talk about the guy who we were talking about earlier, Anthony Richardson, just to kind of give you guys an update on where he is in his rehab. Drake, if I'm being honest, everything that I've seen and everything that I've heard from that's happening at OTAs, I really don't think there's much talk about rehab anymore. Anthony Richardson is doing his normal workload. He isn't, he's taking every single starting rep. He's making every single throw out there. He's really entering mandatory minicamp with no limitations. So he feels 100%. The arm strength and the velocity are there. You guys, I think, have already seen it with the clips that the Colts are posting on social media, or the clips from media members from practice where Anthony Richardson is throwing. He's throwing bombs out there with no resistance and he's no pain either. So that shoulder is fine. Anthony Richardson, I am confident in saying he is 100% back. And honestly, Drake, I don't think we even need to talk about how he's going in his rehab. I think the rehab's done and Anthony Richardson is fully back for good.
Yeah, look, again, it just, we can kind of put a bow on it by saying this. The surgery wasn't just to repair, reconstruct, it was to reinforce.
That's a good point.
So really, his arm is stronger than it was before. And now, not saying, hey, everyone, to get a better right arm or left arm, depending on your strength, go out there and, get an AC joint injury. Not saying that it probably the normal people can't afford it, So look, at the end of the day, when you've seen the tape from the practices, when you've heard, no one's concerned about it, man. It's all 2024. It's Anthony Richardson's second season. It's, the ball leaves his arm so effortlessly. Nothing's labored, nothing's slow, nothing's behind. Everything is on time. Okay. So everything looks good, man. And it looks like the surgery was a resounding success, which, guys, I know that it's really tedious to wait for results from something like that. I don't even think that the Colts staff was really that worried about it. So it's just one of those things where you see the happiness, the joy, the smile from Anthony Richardson. You're going to say things like, I feel like myself again, which remember, these guys are human beings. If any one of us couldn't throw or couldn't do our job, we would feel like crap. Well, he felt like crap there for a while because he's just a young kid. So I'm pumped. I'm happy for him. I think that camp looks great. It's the best when you hear no news. So I think that if you're a Colts fan, there's really no better result up to this point that you could ask for.
And as Stats Matt says, that surgery is supposed to make it harder to get hurt again. So yeah, reinforces everything within the shoulder there. And Anthony Richardson looks good to go. So let's talk about this. Is what stood out to me, really the highlight of the day. We talk about the great coverage, and really the Colts defense did really good work today. But in my opinion, the highlight of the day, from the Colts practice that was open to the media today, Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell was adjusted midair to a deep ball from Anthony Richardson. Darrell Baker Jr. was the one in coverage, but Adonai Mitchell came down with it. And you know what? It's not just us noticing that Adonai Mitchell's out there making plays. The Colts coaching staff is noticing as well. Shane Steichen has said, a couple times now that Adonai Mitchell is out there making plays, not only against with the second team, but he's out there making plays with the first team offense as well. So if the head coach is noticing already here in these early practices that Mitchell's already adjusting well to the NFL and making those plays, Drake, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but what did we say last year about Josh Downs? Just give him time. Maybe halfway through the season, we might see him overtake Isaiah McKenzie. Adonai Mitchell sure seems ahead of the curve. I'm not going to predict it right now, but the more this happens, the noise is going to get louder and louder. That Adonai Mitchell could be a starter in this wide receiver group for the Colts here sooner than we really think it could be possible.
It's crazy that a future Hall of Famer of the league that played wide receiver might just be a wizard at coaching young wide receivers. So, Reggie Wayne, man, you're talking about, you give him now a 6'2", 205-pound wide receiver that not only can he bolt, not only is his 10-yard split under 1.5, not only is his 20-yard split under 2.5 seconds, but the man runs a 4.340. And on top of that, he's a route running fundamentalist. Okay. He understands the route tree. He can run the outsides, the insides. He can run the slot routes. The guy is a menace. Okay. And he's a big physical receiver that almost had a perfect RAS score. Okay. So if you put him out there with Richardson, with Jelani Woods, those three right there are all three almost 10s across the board athletically. So you're talking about a dynamic offense. I'm really not that surprised to hear this from Mitchell. But I will say, just everybody, kind of like you said, just temper expectations. But it already, like you also mentioned, it's making me remember, Andrew, around this time last year, Josh Downs is going to sit behind Isaiah McKenzie. He's going to be the guy that around week 7 or 8, you'll see him start. McKenzie's going to have a career season. He's going to have 45 catches. Didn't even get to the preseason, man. And he was behind Downs. So, who knows what Mitchell's going to do? He has a higher ceiling than Downs. So it's just temper expectations. But so far, Mitchell's showing out. And Colts fans should be excited because everyone's been calling this a steal.
Exactly. And again, it is OTAs,
Yeah,
it is, we're still very early in the process. So we're trying to tamper expectations.
It's not easy.
Bit. Let's not, as Chris Ballard loves to say, let's not crown the kid. All right. So let's not crown Adonai Mitchell the second coming of Reggie Wayne or Marvin Harrison. I don't want to go that far, but it's a good sign that he's catching on this quickly. He's already making plays against the Colts first team defense, and he's catching on to this Steichen offense very, very quickly. So the sooner he can do that, and again, continue to stack days in mandatory minicamp, and then over the summer, don't stop, continue to work and hone in your craft, get those extra throwing sessions in with Anthony Richardson over the summer, then come to training camp and absolutely blow the doors off of things. Who knows? Adonai Mitchell could be a starter by week 1 if things continue like this. Another player that's making plays, continuing to make plays. We already talked about it, that he was doing it last week. doing it this week again. Jelani Woods. Jelani Woods continues to make plays in the passing game, specifically, chunk plays in the passing game, getting to the second level and making those catches, and not only just catching the football, creating yards after the catch, which again, I talked about this on Tuesday. That is something that the Colts severely lacked in their offense last year. It was a guy that could catch the football and then do things with the football in his hands after the catch. Now, Michael Pittman did sometimes. Josh Downs did sometimes. But you need a reliable threat that can be a guy that can get you consistent yards after catch. It just makes things easier on Anthony Richardson. Jelani Woods could be that guy, Drake. And if he continues to stack these days, it's going to be really hard for the Colts coaching staff to not play him, to not start Jelani Woods and give him a lion's share of those snaps, whether it is the move tight end or the inline tight end. He just needs to continue to stack these plays. And it really does seem like, because he missed that year, that's really added some extra motivation to Jelani Woods. I think he gets the importance of this year for him going into year 3 of his rookie contract. Didn't really do too. He showed some promise his rookie year, but again, didn't play too many snaps. Then misses all of the second season. It's time to go for Jelani Woods if he wants to be here full time and get a decent second contract. So all that motivation could scream the breakout year we've all been looking for, finally, for Jelani Woods.
Yeah. And look, just to give you guys an idea of how explosive Jelani Woods is. Okay. I'm going to read you and then Adonai Mitchell, 10-yard, 20-yard splits. Now, obviously I'm not even talking about 40 yards because you're talking about a 50-pound difference. Eventually that weight's going to take over. So 10-yard split, AD Mitchell, 1.48 seconds, Jelani Woods, 1.57. Not even 0.1 seconds behind a wide receiver that's 50 pounds smaller and 5 inches shorter. 20-yard split, AD Mitchell, 2.5, Jelani Woods, 2.6. Okay. This man is 6'7", and he's like 265, 60 pounds. When he catches the ball right away, he is already generating energy. He's already generating movement. He's already going to start moving downfield. I'm telling you, if he can get the route tree down, if he can block a little bit better, and for God's sakes, if he can get his hamstring issue, just keep that at bay. You're talking about one of the most athletically gifted tight ends in the entire league. Okay. The sky's the limit for Jelani Woods. It's a very crowded tight end room. So if he goes down at all, Andrew, or doesn't live up to expectations, there's plenty of guys behind him that are right there ready to take away snaps.
Exactly. So you keep this in mind, Colts fans, about Jelani Woods. We could be seeing a resurgence, and as GSG Goodbar says, Jelani is as focused as ever. He's ready to have a breakout season.
Scary man.
And again, as Colts fans, you want that to happen. You want them to finally, zone in on one tight end. Having all of these tight ends is great in theory, but it's kind of almost like if you have a bunch of tight ends, you don't have one tight end. It's almost like if you have a bunch of quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks.
Well, who do you lean on?
Having all these tight ends is good in theory, but you look at the four teams who made it to the conference finals last year, the conference championships last year. The Ravens have Mark Andrews, the Chiefs have Travis Kelce, the Lions have Sam Laporta, and the 49ers have George Kittle. It seems like to be really good in the NFL, you need to have a really good tight end. Hopefully the Colts have that in Jelani Woods. But let's talk about some position battles, because I know you guys have all been wanting to hear about who's going to be the starting cornerbacks, who's going to be that starting free safety. Well, as of right now, who's been rolling out there with the number ones and getting the starting reps primarily at cornerback? It still has been Jalen Jones over Dallas Flowers. Dallas Flowers has been coming in mostly with the twos. It's been Jalen Jones opposite of Juju Brents, with Kenny Moore in the slot at that outside cornerback position. And honestly, Drake, I think that's kind of what we expected. We expected that to happen until, Dallas Flowers can actually go out there and prove that he deserves that starting spot. He's going to have to earn it back, because Jalen Jones wasn't a slouch last year when he came in for Dallas Flowers. Surprised everybody, being a 7th-round pick and playing really good, meaningful snaps, and really getting better as the year went on. Jalen Jones isn't going to give up that starting cornerback spot. Dallas Flowers is going to have to earn it and really pry it from Jalen Jones if he wants it.
Yeah, and look, Jalen Jones has already shown out far better than his draft stock. Okay, you're talking about at one point there were 4 starters on the Colts that were all 7th-round picks. Okay, so Jalen Jones has earned every single thing he has with this team. Don't discount the guy. Believe in him, because he was a 7th freaking round pick, and he's also the reason that Darius Rush is no longer a Colt, was a Chief, and now is a Steeler. So I think that that's not surprising. I think Kenny Moore is the perfect slot guy. And I think that, now at this point, you're just hoping Juju Brents, continues to ascend. And then, those depth cornerback roles, they're strong because you need depth at cornerback badly. And we saw how bad with the Colts last season.
And as our good friend Noah says, let's go Jalen Jones. Noah's been
he's the Jalen Jones guy.
He's been all on the Jalen Jones train, and he's got the numbers to back it up as well. So, hey, Jalen Jones going out there and becoming a fantastic starter just makes Noah look like a genius. So, Noah, appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Gave you your flowers on Tuesday. I'll give them to you again. You were a fantastic co-host with Drake, filling in for me, buddy. Appreciate it, and hopefully we can have you back on here soon. And hey, maybe Noah will even be able to start his own podcast. We'll get multiple podcasts going again here on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. We'll have to see that if we could make that a possibility. But we talked about cornerback, Drake. Jalen Jones over Dallas Flowers. Let's move to free safety. It's been Nick Cross over Rodney Thomas II. And obviously, I would say obviously, but to me, that's not really a surprise. In my opinion, Nick Cross is the better player than Rodney Thomas II. Now, Rodney Thomas II adds good depth, but, you traded up for Nick Cross in the 3rd round. You got to see now, he's got to prove it. It's time. Him as well, entering the 3rd year of his rookie contract, just like Jelani Woods. Now time to go show, can you be the starter that the Colts envisioned you to be at the safety position? So Nick Cross, he's made a couple of pass breakups in OTAs. He's looked good in coverage. The communication with Julian Blackmon has been there as well. And I think that was one of the major things lacking last season. So the Colts are giving Nick Cross his opportunity. This is his time to go out there and seize it, because he has all the opportunity in the world right now to seize that starting spot at free safety and make the Colts feel like we feel good about Nick Cross there. If he doesn't and he's shaky, then the Colts will start to look at Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, the safeties remaining on the open market. But it's all on Nick Cross right now to take over that position. And if he doesn't, the Colts have to look outside for other answers.
Yeah, look, man, you're still talking about a 22-year-old dude, man. I mean, he is just so freaking young. Mm-hmm. So still has a lot of room to grow. But look, this is year 3, baby. Time to kick it into gear. You have to make things happen because there is safety talent out there that, by the way, based off of NFL standards, cheap as hell, that will absolutely take your spot. Quandre Diggs or Justin Simmons, if either one of them were signed right now, would take Nick Cross's spot. I'm sure of it. So you need to, he has to step up or they'll do something like that, because ever since restructuring DeForest Buckner's contract, they've got the room to make this happen. So while the Colts are patient, it's also like, what have you done for me lately, league? And Nick Cross has recently shown promise, especially last season, but we were also saying he was killing it in camp when he started in 2022 and then got benched. So Nick Cross has to answer the bell, dude, because if he doesn't sooner rather than later, the Colts are just going to start seeing him as a trade target that's young.
Exactly. Now let's talk about some guys that have missed this week of OTAs. Jonathan Taylor is dealing with a personal issue, so he wasn't there, but Shane Steichen said that he should be back for mandatory minicamp. No issues there. Michael Pittman Jr. has been held out this week as a precautionary. He banged knees with Jalen Jones last week. Shane, if it was an in-season practice, Michael Pittman would be practicing. So again, it's May, guys, almost June. They don't need to be pushing these guys. So the Pittman should be a full go next week for mandatory minicamp. Dio Dangbo not out there as well, but he's attending a wedding. So again, all these are voluntary workouts. So the guy's not being there, not a huge issue, but we just want to report it to you guys anyway. And then Mo Alley Cox, well, we didn't get a reason for why he wasn't at practice, but Mo Alley Cox was out as well. And then we all know Braden Smith and Ashton Doolin dealing with a knee and ACL injury, respectively, recovering from those. They are not practicing or participating in OTAs or the mandatory mini camp, and so they should be back in time for training camp. So really, Drake, looking at all of these guys, the Colts are in pretty good hands, knock on wood, injury wise, where they're not missing too many guys, and the guys that are out, it's not for really any huge issue.
Yeah, and this is really around the time of the football season in the NFL where it's like, I'm not saying you shouldn't go, right? But like, I love the articles. Justin Jefferson does not attend OTAs. It's like, a lot of the veterans don't, dude. They just don't. So it's more for the rookies. It's more for the edge guys, the guys who are like right on the cusp of making or breaking the roster. So I think that as the season goes along, man, you're just going to see more and more. And then as we hopefully get the chance to go to camp and watch, this new look Colts offense actually play in person, I can't wait, because as we've heard, man, we've been hearing a lot of rumblings about the youngsters, man, the guys who are the youth movement of this team making big plays against the veterans of the team, which is just awesome. Whether you know the plays or not, it's always encouraging to hear.
Exactly. Yeah, we will be down there at training camp for you guys like we are every year. Shaheen is going nuts here with the super chats. I got to shout this guy out. Shaheen, thank you so much, because you're now up to $30 worth in super chats, brother. I think Drake needs to now just chug whatever's in his glass. So let's see. Yeah, welcome back, Andrew. Have a sip, Jake. I'm on the Xavier Howard train. Love you guys as always. And then he goes, Jake, forgive me. Then he goes, take my money, Drake. You finally got it. There we go. Shaheen got it. So listen,
Gene, if I ever meet you in person, I owe you like 7 drinks, because that's preposterous.
He says,
you didn't have to do that.
My super chat is glitchy. Hey, we appreciate the hell out of you, Shaheen. And maybe it's only $10, but if it's $30, my brother in Christ, we appreciate the hell out of you. He said
down there, bruh. Like, oh my God, man, what's going on with my super chat?
Oh, Shaheen, you made our night, buddy. You made our night. But hey, let's talk about that, Drake, because if he's going to give us all of those super chats, we're definitely going to talk about Xavier Howard here. So I know you wrote a piece on Xavier Howard for the Colts a couple months ago now at this point, but let's talk about it. Where the Colts sit at this point with this team, in OTA's mandatory minicamp, and how the roster is currently constructed now after the draft. What are your thoughts on the Colts adding Xavier Howard to this team?
Shaheen, I love it, man. I love this addition. I think that you're talking about a guy who is just 1 year removed from a Pro Bowl season. You're talking about a guy who at one point, at 2 different times in his career, led the league in interceptions. I mean, he's got the skills. They're there. He has that Stephon Gilmore allure to him. I'm telling you, he does. And I think that he just needs to change his scenery. I think that he needs a defense where he's not the guy. I think he is at that point, Colts fans, where he's not a prime Xavier Howard, but that's good, because otherwise he'd be like $18 to $20 million a year. So I think you could get him at a cheap bargain. Clearly no one's out there running to get this guy. So I would love it. I think the Colts still need veteranship at the cornerback position, and Micah Abraham has promise. So does Jalen Simpson. Amazing coverage safety. Okay, so they felt that he could play cornerback, but I still think you need a veteran, and I think that he would really not cost that much, especially on like a 1 or 2 year deal.
I think it's interesting that Xavier Howard still isn't picked up for a number of reasons, and why is that? Is it because of the injury history? Are teams really afraid of that? Have teams, been able to take a look at his medicals and they're not comfortable with where he is at, considering his age? I think he's 30 years old now. Is Xavier Howard still asking for too much, considering his age and where we're at this point in the off season? So what are all the factors that that are going into it that are keeping Xavier Howard still out there on the open market? Or is it that the offers have been extended to him? He's just waiting for the right one. So it makes it interesting. He definitely brings a veteran presence to the cornerback room. He's a former All-Pro. Can he get to that point? I'm not sure. I don't think he can get to that former All-Pro status again. You probably don't need him to. And it could also come down to, the Colts have these guys in Juju Brents and Jalen Jones that they really, really like. Xavier Howard coming in could take snaps away, probably from Jalen Jones. Do the Colts really want to do that, or do they want to allow Jalen Jones to kind of work and make those mistakes so they can find out what do they have in Jalen Jones? Do they have a long-term starting cornerback with him, or are they going to have to invest elsewhere? So I think there's a lot of different things going into it. In my opinion, if I had to put money on it, I don't think the Colts are going to add a cornerback this summer. I think they're really like their group that they have now, and I could be totally wrong. We'll have to see. But I think if they do add, it's probably would be at that safety position, that free safety, rather than at cornerback. But Shaheen, thank you so much, buddy, for the super chat, for all of your support as always, man. We really, really do appreciate it. So, but Drake, as we kind of wrap up here, we mentioned it, mandatory mini camp is next week. It's from Tuesday through Thursday, and then the Colts break for the summer and won't get back together till the end of July in Westfield when training camp begins. That's will be our first time to see really some high intense 11-on-11 between all the starters on offense and defense. So let's make it real simple here. What is one thing that you are looking forward to seeing next week when mandatory minicamp for the Indianapolis Colts takes place?
Before we even get to my opinion on what I think is going to happen and what I'm looking forward to, please address the missus.
My beautiful wife, Danielle, the fantastic mother of my son, Jackson, with her nightly.
Hey, Danielle she went through a nut. You know what? I'm proud of her.
An absolute champion. She went through a lot with delivering Jackson. A wild story. I won't tell all you guys. We'll keep the personal information in here. But hey, just commend her. She's an absolute champion and a rock star. So thank you so much for all of your support as always.
So, and I'm sorry. So basically, you're like asking me like something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to finding out or seeing in mandatory minicamp next week?
You know what? I want to know are Micah Abraham and Jalen Simpson legitimate solutions, either starting, which is, you never know. Look at Jalen Jones, or depth pieces. Are they legitimate solutions in some way, shape, or form at defensive back? We'll have to see, because, Andrew, remember, we were wetting our pants over Darrell Baker Jr. in the offseason. And then he sees NFL competition, can't cover a ghost. So that's what I'm intrigued to see, because, look, you need help at defensive back, regardless of if you want to talk about it or if you drafted a couple guys. The results have to play out first before you can really know if they worked out. So that's what I'm intrigued about.
I like that. Unfortunately, my answer isn't going to be as unique as yours. Guys, my eyes are going to be on number 5. They're going to be on number 5, Anthony Richardson. I want to see what he does going up against this starting Colts defense. I want to see what he is able to do, how quickly he's able to get rid of the football, whether he knows where to go with the football. Can he take what he learned in the classroom over these 7+ months since he's played football, and apply it to the field? How has he progressed mentally, and how does he look going up against this starting defense for the Indianapolis Colts? And then I guess maybe an honorable mention, I want to see how they use Laiatu Latu. I want to see what kind of packages. Does he get any starting reps, or is he primarily with the second team? Where do they use him as a big end? Do they use him as a Leo? Both? Do they use him? Who are they using him with? Samson Ebukam on the other side, Kwity Paye on the other side. We'll just have to see. So those are the two things that I'm really going to be watching for, and we're going to make sure we bring all of that information back to you guys next week when mandatory minicamp wraps up on Thursday. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk Colts football with us. Shout out to Shaheen for the GOAT for a fun question and then to giving us a laugh on the super chats tonight. Hopefully, yeah, to Jake. Hopefully Shaheen can catch a Colts game. He says I'll catch a Colts game in the fall. So hopefully we can meet up with you, Shaheen, to see it and talk some Colts football. And then to my beautiful wife Danielle, who's absolutely killing it as a mother to my son. Just a fantastic. I was very, very proud of her and everything that she has done and is continues to do. Moms are what make this world go round, guys. So appreciate the hell out of them and everyone else that joined on tonight to talk Colts football. It's always so much fun to chat with you guys on every Monday and Thursday night. Make sure you go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you click that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every single time so you never miss us. And then if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and you can also catch Drake and I's audio-only episodes of Horseshoe Huddle Halftime or wherever you listen to podcasts. Drake, I know you've still been writing away on horseshoehuddle.com as always, so tell the people what they need to go check out.
So I've been doing a lot of aggregate work just because this is a very slow time of the season. So recently did some stuff on how Michael Pittman was snubbed in some rankings, how the NFL community and analysts and experts believe that Leatu Latu could be a dangerous new addition. And hey, Joe Flacco got some Drake Wally love in one of his articles. So go check out what I said about Joey F, baby.
Yeah, some interesting pieces for sure. So definitely check those out for myself. I already told you guys I released a piece on what Shane Steichen thought of Anthony Richardson's progress. Got a lot of interesting takes from Shane Steichen of what exactly he's been watching with Anthony Richardson all spring. So make sure to check that out. And guys, tomorrow got to talk with Jelani Woods today. So a lot of thoughts about what happened with the injury and what he's focused on for 2024. So make sure to check that out as well as all the other fantastic writings on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Monday night to talk more Colts football with you, and it'll be a lot of fun as always. So everyone, enjoy your weekend, and we'll be seeing you right back here Monday night.